I asked the question, why did Jesus need to be baptized? And I think that I asked the question because I've never really discovered a good answer for that. It also seems to me that Luke really doesn't have a good answer for that either. And to tell you the truth, Luke doesn't seem to care one bit about it. Luke doesn't really give any attention to Jesus' baptism at all. It's almost like it's an afterthought. He says, when everyone else was being baptized, Jesus was also baptized. Okay, sure, Jesus did it, but so did everyone else. And so this passage is really only about baptism because of the part it plays in the rest of Jesus' life. For this passage anyway, it seems to me that the only reason that Jesus gets baptized is so that Luke can get to what is really important. And that really important thing is God's declaration that you are my son, whom I dearly love. In you I find happiness. So for Luke, baptism is about identity. And because Luke is all about Jesus' divine power, you'll see as you walk through Luke that he focuses on stories of Jesus using his divine power to heal people and to do miracles. But first, he's got to take us on a stroll through Jesus' identity. And he does that by listing the genealogy of Jesus in the very next paragraph. And if you're like me, I'll admit it right now, that when I get to that part of the gospel, I just skip ahead through all that boring stuff. Because who cares who begat who, right? But it's there for a reason. And so let's take the time this morning to take a listen. Jesus was about 30 years old when he began his ministry. And people supposed that he was the son of Joseph, son of Heli, son of Matthai, son of Levi, son of Melchi, son of Janai, son of Joseph, son of Mattathias, son of Amos, son of Nahum, son of Esli, son of Nagai, son of Maath, son of Mattathias, son of Simeon, son of Josech, son of Yoda, son of Johanan, son of Resa, son of Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, son of Neri, son of Melchi, son of Adi, son of Kosam, son of Almadon, son of son of Joshua, son of Eleazar, son of Joram, son of Mattah, son of Levi, son of Simeon, son of Judah, son of Joseph, son of Jonam, son of Eliakim, son of Meliah, son of Menah, son of Mattatha, son of Nathan, son of David, son of Jesse, son of Obed, son of Boaz, son of Salah, son of Nashon, son of Ananimadab, son of Admin, son of Arni, son of Hezron, son of Perez, son of Judah, son of Jacob, son of Isaac, son of Abraham, son of Teran, son of Nahor, son of Serug, son of Ru, son of Peleg, son of Eber, son of Shelah, son of Canaan, son of Arphaxad, son of Shem, son of Noah, son of Lamech, son of Methuselah, son of Enoch, son of Jared, son of Mahalalel, son of Canaan, son of Enos, son of Seth, son of Adam, son of God. Now you can see why we usually skip that, right? You remember any of those? You might have remembered the high points, Jonah and Abraham and David, maybe. Son of God. Of all the names in that list, and they're all part of the roadmap to the very last line, the Son of God. Now, for most of Jewish history, the title of Son of God was given to the leader of Israel, and sometimes that was a king, and sometimes that was a prophet. But Luke gives that title to Adam, the original man created directly by God. So by tracing Jesus all the way to Adam, Luke is telling us that Jesus is God's son. He's also telling us that Jesus goes back to the very, very beginning of time. Now Matthew chooses to give Jesus' lineage at the very beginning of the book. He wants to establish that foundation before he begins his story. Luke, however, delays it till here, the 3rd chapter. He puts it here as a part of Jesus' identity. So who was Jesus? Well, for one, he was God's Son. Now, this wasn't a title that Luke was giving lightly. It's necessary. And if you think about how Luke tells this story, or about how anyone tells an important story, they do it with the end in mind. They already know how it's going to happen. You don't tell a story without wanting to share the ending. And the way that you craft it shapes the way the end is revealed. So if I want to tell you about the day that I met Wendy, I'm going to tell you the story with today in mind. 27 years of our lives being woven together. Kids, marriage, chapter after chapter of where we've been. And I can't tell you about that first day without knowing what happened yesterday and all the days in between. That's how Luke is telling the story. He knows the end and all the days in between. So this is an important part of the story. And what that tells us as followers of Christ is that as we follow in the footsteps of Christ, we must also understand that our identity as sons and daughters of God is given to us in our baptism. Just as Jesus came out of the water, God declared, "You are my Son." And we may not hear it loud and clear, and we may not see the heavens open up, but when we are touched by the water of baptism, God declares, "You are mine. You are my son. You are my daughter. You are mine." Now, of course, it doesn't really start there. It didn't start in that moment for Jesus, because Jesus was with God from the very beginning. That is where the claim is first made. And so it is for us as well. From our beginning, God declares, "You are mine." And in the moment of baptism, we recognize it and we claim it. We put on that identity like our favorite shirt. You are mine. You have always been mine. You will always be mine. Welcome home. And that's wonderful, right? It is. But it also comes with a catch. Because the very next thing that happens to Jesus, right after he comes up out of the water for baptism, is that he begins the rest of his life. And for Jesus, that meant that he had to go into the desert for 40 days and be tempted. That was the start of his ministry. The next step after our baptism is also the start of our ministry. It's when we begin to live into our identity. Now, hopefully that doesn't mean a trip for you to the desert to be tempted. But we are called to ministry. We're called to reach out, to help people, to carry the name of God to the world. It's a part of our identity in Christ. And how do we do that? Well, the first thing that we have to do is embrace the calling. And we can't fully live into our identity in Christ until we embrace it. Now, the second thing is that we have to study the life of Jesus and to do the things that Jesus does. And that's why Luke tells the story. You know, Jesus did these things. Now you're to do them. That's what he says at the end. And then in the second act, which we know as the Acts of the Apostles, he shows us what that looks like. Book 2, the Acts, shows us the actions of the early Christian church with the intention that we will do likewise as a church. So not only are we called to live into our identity as a child of God, but we're also called to live into our identity as Christ's church. And we do that by continually listening to God and following in the footsteps of our brother Jesus. All of this is contained in that one line. Jesus was also baptized. Jesus was also baptized. and we are also baptized. So what's next for us? Would you pray with me, please? God, we give you thanks that you call us by name, that you reach out to us and you know us so intimately that you would be able to call us by name. We thank you for claiming us, but we also understand that in that claim is a call for us to live as your children. And so we accept that call this morning, and we pledge to take it into the world. Help us to know what it is you would have us do in the name of Christ.